The Secret Real Life of Joan Fontaine revealed. Joan Fontaine was a British-American actress, the younger sister of actress Olivia de Havilland. She was famous for her polished performances in Hollywood movies of the 1940s and 1950s, and she was exceptional in Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca in 1940 and Suspicion the following year. She received 3 Academy Award nominations for Best Actress and won the award once for Suspicion. As her movie career wound down in the 1960s, Joan turned her talents to Broadway and television. She also had many non-acting interests including cooking, ballooning and golf. She was born Joan de Beauvoir de Havilland in Tokyo, Japan on October 22, 1917 into a comfortably off middle-class British family. Her parents were Walter de Havilland, a patent attorney practicing in Japan, and Lillian Augusta Roos, a former stage actress. Due to Joan's poor health, on the advice of a doctor, the family moved to Saratoga, California, when Joan was still a baby. Their father went back to his practice in Japan and he and Lillian divorced soon afterwards, when Joan was 2. Lillian soon remarried, to a store manager George Fontaine, a strict disciplinarian, who was disliked by both his new stepdaughters, as much as they disliked each other. Joan and Olivia had a difficult relationship as children with jealousy and squabbles and even fist-fighting. According to Joan, Olivia could not get used to the idea of a younger sister competing for their mother's affections, and thus a lifetime of jealous rivalry was begun. Joan was a very bright child with an IQ of 160 and she excelled at Los Gatos High School, Saratoga, where she went until she was 15. She then returned to Japan to stay with her father for a year, studying at the American school. On her return she began to take an interest in an acting career like her sister, who had also developed an interest in the theater. Joan performed with various West Coast stage companies using the name Joan Burfield as Olivia was already using the family name. Burfield came from Burfield Street in Hollywood. Her stage debut was opposite May Robson in a 1935 production of Kind Lady. She used the same name when she made her feature film debut with a small part in No More Ladies, also in 1935. For a while she also used the name Joan St. John until she took her stepfather's name, supposedly at the suggestion of a fortune-teller who said it was a success name. Joan was soon signed up to a contract with RKO and in 1937 she found herself starring alongside Fred Astaire in his first RKO film Without Ginger Rogers, A Damsel in Distress, but the movie failed at the box office. She appeared in relatively minor roles in a number of movies over the next 3 years including with Norma Shearer and Joan Crawford in The Women in 1939, but she did not make a strong impression, and when her contract expired in 1939 it was not renewed. She became a star in 1940 when after a 6-month series of film tests, she won the coveted role of the second Mrs. De Winter in Alfred Hitchcock's Hollywood debut movie Rebecca. She received rave reviews and a Best Actress Award nomination, and although she lost out to Ginger Rogers in Kitty Foyle, she did win the Best Actress Oscar the following year for her superb performance in another Hitchcock film, Suspicion. Strangely, this was the only time Hitchcock directed an Oscar-winning acting performance. This was a golden time for Joan's career and she became more famous than her sister, despite the success of Olivia's performance in Gone with the Wind in 1939. Joan continued with some strong romantic melodramas such as the popular This Above All in 1942, The Constant Nymph the following year, for which she received her 3rd Academy Award nomination, Jane Eyre in 1944, and Letter from an Unknown Woman in 1948. In the same year Joan appeared with Bing Crosby in The Emperor Waltz and then made more romance movies with September Affair and Born to be Bad in 1950. Darling, How Could You?, also known as Rendezvous, made in 1951, was a disappointing movie but it marked the beginning of a new Joan Fontaine acting persona. Instead of playing the shy, well-bred ingénue as in most of her early movies, she began playing mature, more worldly women, often unpleasantly calculating, as in The Bigamist in 1953, Casanova's Big Night in 1954, An Island in the Sun in 1957. By this time Joan was as interested in the jet-set lifestyle as she was in acting, and she realized that there was more to life than being a movie star. She had many interests outside acting, including tuna fishing, fox hunting, golf, and even balloon racing. Her team won a race in Holland. She was also a licensed pilot and an cordon bleu cook. After the late 1950s she made few films and spent a great deal of time absorbed in the European jet-setting social scene. As her film career slowed down, she began making appearances on television, on many panel games, and as a guest star in such programs as Wagon Train and The Bing Crosby Show, and also on the stage, winning excellent reviews for her 1954 role on Broadway in Tea and Sympathy. She appeared also in Noel Coward's Private Lives, the stage production of Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder, and an Austrian production of The Lion in Winter. Joan continued working during the 1970s, and she also joined the lucrative lecture circuit, giving talks to students and women's groups on subjects such as the romance between Robert and Elizabeth Barrett Browning. She continued her television work into the 1980s in series such as Ryan's Hope, for which she received an Emmy nomination, The Love Boat, and Hotel, and her last public screen appearance was as Queen Ludmilla in the TV film Good King Wenceslas in 1994. In her personal life, Joan was married 4 times, from 1939 to 1945 to British actor Brian Aherne, from 1946 to 1951 to actor and producer William Dozier, with whom she had a daughter, Debbie. Then from 1952 to 1961 to producer and writer Collier Young, and finally from 1964 to 1969 to journalist Alfred Wright Jr. She also adopted a young Peruvian girl, Martita, in 1952, who ran away from home when she was 17. Both Martita and Joan's natural daughter, Debbie, were estranged from Joan. The well-publicized feud between Joan and her sister, Olivia de Havilland, also continued, and it is believed they had not spoken since 1975, although both women denied this. Joan was a wealthy lady with interests in cattle farming, real estate, and the oil industry. She lived a quiet retirement in Carmel, California, spending her time tending her gardens and looking after her dogs. Joan Fontaine passed away in her sleep in Carmel on December 16, 2013. She was 96 years old. Rest in peace, Joan Fontaine. Goodbye, legend.